live virtually. We'll start off just with open session here. Is anybody here for open session, Ryan? Has anyone indicated that to you?
Not at this time.
Okay, due to the, still very brand new nature of all of this, in the event that, we aren't going to make people wait for our entire meeting in the event that they don't quite know how to do it right at this moment, or if they log on. So please, maybe I'll remind them of that again, but also if somebody sort of chimes in and wants to do something that might be an open session, we will definitely take them out of order. Okay. Okay, then just sort of real quick before we get to the presentations, Dr. Mears here, we'll just do a couple of announcements that you will do.
All right. So the first announcement, I'm just sharing my screen here for the agenda. The first announcement is that the Memorial Day Parade Committee has decided to cancel this year's Memorial Day Parade. There is plans to do something, whether that be a distance gathering or a virtual celebration of Memorial Day with pre-recorded videos, etc. So that the day will be honored. But given the amount of time it takes and the preparation and how soon Memorial Day is in terms of that planning process, there will be no Memorial Day Parade this year. So I just wanted to start getting that message out. As someone who has dedicated a majority of their life to things like Memorial Day, this is definitely not an easy thing to digest or hear, but I think it makes sense, and we will do something that properly honors our veterans, given the month we have left to plan. And then,
Ryan, real quick, how about flags?
Yes, so great question. It was brought up to us because Katie's going to start putting out the Hubbardston Fair flags. She asked a great question: when should the American flags get up? And I thought, given we thought, given the nature of things going on right now, that we should get them up as soon as possible, just as a show of spirit. So they should be going up in the next week or two.
Okay, great.
And then election nomination papers, because of the decision that was made last week by the Board of Selectmen, are now due May 12th. So those papers are not due April 21st anymore. They're due May 12th. Contact our town clerk or myself. We can give you some tips and some guidance on how to do that. It's a difficult thing statewide, how to get the nomination papers. People are using mail, dropping things off, trying to stay socially distanced. So just wanted to continue to put that information out there.
I checked in with Lori about that just to get a general idea on where we stood last week. Have you looked into it at all? Any more recent than that as far as people pulling papers?
I do know that we have half a dozen people that have pulled papers, and another half a dozen more that indicated that they were going to. So people are finding a way to volunteer and participate, which is nice. There are a couple of people who said they wouldn't participate because of the current climate. I am encouraging, and this isn't political, this is just for the purposes of running the town. If people aren't running, I am suggesting to them that they let people know, which they might not normally do, so that people know that there are some openings maybe they wouldn't have considered running. So just as much you'd want to announce that you're running, maybe you want to announce that you're not. And that might help us fill some of our volunteer slots.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else announcement-wise?
That's it.
All right, well, moving on to item 3, which is the presentations, discussions, call it what you want. But our first one is that we have in the agenda here is the QRSD Superintendent Update. Dr. Sheila Muir is here, present tonight. Doesn't matter to me how we sort of start this, Ryan, but do you want to just give a quick little, before handing it over, just a quick introduction?
Yeah, so we have obviously some of our most important residents are our students, and of course the situation currently is impacting our families, not more than most, but definitely in a challenging way. So a lot of questions that we get revolve around the schools, and I know the board has some questions about the schools, the future schools, and what's being done. So I thought we'd invite Dr. Muir on to just talk about where the schools are at, how they're dealing with COVID-19 in the same manner that our town is. And if the board had any questions about the schools right now, they could ask on behalf of the public. Dr. Muir was gracious enough to join us to do that.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it. So, Sheila, welcome. Thanks for coming. And, we'll try not to interrupt. It's hard to do sometimes now that we're on this new environment. Definitely, please let us know where things are at in the district after you unmute.
I'm still getting used to this, even though I feel like I spend most of my life on this thing now. Thank you for inviting me this evening. And I had, at the last school committee meeting, I gave an update, sort of just a chronology sort of what department in the school was doing and what they had been doing. So I'll start and go ahead kind of through that process. If you have any questions, and I'll stop kind of at the end of each section, and if you have any questions, that might be the easiest way for us to take questions, but please feel free at any time to ask any questions that you may have. I'll start by saying that when the decision from the governor to close schools was made, or I guess when the decision was made to close schools on March 13th, which is a Friday late afternoon or early evening, by the time we announced it in the Quabbin district, we had been, my entire team had been pretty much sitting in my conference room for the last 2 days trying to decide what the best course of action was. We did not receive a lot of guidance from the Department of Education, nor did we receive a lot of guidance from the governor's office at that time. School districts were really left up. The decision was left up to school districts. And as of that Friday morning, we really had made a decision to continue to go to school. As things unfolded on that Friday, it became evident that there were going to be very few school districts in the state that remained open past that that date. And so in order to, we ended up given some additional guidance and having conversations with Worcester County Superintendent's Association, we decided to close. So it was a late decision, and I think it was definitely in hindsight the right decision. But if you had asked me that morning whether that was the decision we were going to make, I think I would have said no. So and then what happened is we really just kicked into gear, and we decided that what we needed to really focus on was the families that were going to be left without food. So one of our first decisions was how to continue to feed the families in the district. And so over that weekend, not only do we plan for delivery of educational services, but delivery of food. And by Tuesday morning, we were delivering food to or making food available, breakfast and lunch available to families, all families in the district out of 2 sites, the Hardwick Elementary School and the Middle High School. We started on that first Tuesday. I think we served 22 breakfasts and lunches at the Middle High School and 83 at the Hardwick Elementary School, 83 breakfasts and lunches. So it's a total of 166 and 44. So just over 200 meals that first day. Last week, we were up to 626 meals at the Middle High School per day, and 358 meals per day at the elementary, at Hardwick Elementary School. So to date, we've served about 20,000, a little over 20,000 meals to families in the district. So
Can I just interrupt real quick?
absolutely.
Did you have any expectation it would be like that?
We have, I would say that we knew there were a lot of needy families in the district. I think our free and reduced lunch numbers don't necessarily reflect the great need, and I think the need has increased significantly with with this crisis. I mean, there are a lot of families who are really struggling. And so I guess if I had to predict whether, we would be serving 600 meals a day out of the middle high school, probably not, but we knew there was a great need and we were really committed. Initially, our free and reduced lunch numbers were only qualified for federal reimbursement at the Hardwick Elementary School. So honestly, we took a bit of a chance to start serving out of the middle high school, understanding that we might not get federal reimbursement shortly. We were notified that federal reimbursement would be available for those meals and the cost of producing those meals out of the middle high school or other district schools. But initially we were only guaranteed reimbursement out of the Hardwick Elementary School, because you had to be at 50% or greater free and reduced lunch. And that's the only school currently at that point that qualified for those free lunches. But we've been maintaining good records of what we've served to date. And so we will receive some federal reimbursement for all of the meals that we've been able to produce. So.
Sheila, if I could interrupt you, this is Jeff. I just wanted to put it out there for people who might be listening and might not know, as we already know, that you folks are also taking care of families with children, not necessarily who are actual students of Quabbin. And I think that's incredible what you guys are doing.
So yes, thank you for bringing that up. So children from any age up to age 18 and including if you're 18 and under, including children that aren't yet school age, are eligible. Children who don't attend school in the Quabbin district, as long as they live in the Quabbin district. Actually, the federal school lunch program, the way this works is you can go to any community. So for example, if a family in Hubbardston needed food and they lived closer to Gardner and it was easier for them to go to Gardner to get food, they could go to the Gardner Public Schools food distribution site. So it really is proximity more than anything. So we are even we don't take names, we don't ask who the families are, because we don't need to. We just need to keep counts currently. But we understand that we're probably servicing people who don't even live in the Quabbin district, and we're happy to do that. Wherever there's a need, we're fulfilling that need. I was at the Hardwick site this morning, helping to pass out meals, and we had a lady come, and she said, "Well, I have 2 children, but I also have 2 children who are staying with me. They don't necessarily always live with me, but they're staying with me through this crisis." And she said, I'm not sure if I can get food for those 2 children. And we said, of course. So it is good to get the word out. Anyone who needs it, if you have children, initially the rules were that you had to bring the children with you. Now the adults are coming and they're telling us how many children they have. And we even have one gentleman in Hardwick who's picking up for his whole neighborhood. So he comes to the school, he gets a significant number of meals, and he goes and distributes them in his neighborhood to help save people time. And those who have young children, it's a little bit easier than having to put the young children in the car and drive them to the school. So we also are delivering some meals to families who have transportation, and we've been using volunteers. I know Mrs. Peterson is delivering to a couple of families in Hubbardston who are having transportation. Transportation is an issue for them, whether it's the time or just, lack of a vehicle. I'm not sure what the situation is, but so within each town, we have a few families who have asked for some help in getting the food, and we've been able to find school district volunteers who are very willing to take meals to families. We're now distributing 3 days a week, so we're distributing on Monday, and people pick up from Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, you get 2 meals for Wednesday and Thursday, and then on Friday, folks get meals for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's food service. Unless anyone has any questions, I'll move on.
Just one quick comment is I think my kids have memorized the phone number that comes on the phone from the one call system.
We recently just, and I can't remember the name of the organization, but there've been some grants that have been offered to school districts as well to help with food service provisions through the pandemic. And we just recently heard that we've been awarded a $10,000 grant. And so Carrie Dubois Gould is ordering a machine that will allow her to package food in containers that folks can put in their oven, so they'll be heatable. So that will help. Now we're distributing food that can be warmed up in a microwave, but this will be better. It'll allow more flexibility in how to package the food, and maybe a little bit more flexibility in what they can offer, because they'll be in oven-proof kinds of containers that folks can heat up meals with as well. So I'm not sure what the timeline is on that, but I know that's the plan for that grant. And they also there was some money in that grant. They wanted us to continue to get the word out, so that you'll see some lawn signs around in various communities. That's one of the things that we're also trying to do to get the word out around food distribution. So the plant facilities department, they're using the schools. They also clean the meal sites regularly in central office, which remains open. Every elementary school is open. Just for the office, most of the principals are going in, and office managers as needed. They're primarily working from home, but being on site sometimes feels a little bit like you're more in touch with the work that you're doing. So our principals are going into the office as needed, and so those offices are cleaned when they use them. But it took them up until last Friday to really sanitize every school space to the degree that they felt that it was adequate. So that cleaning has been conducted. And just about the time the cleaning was finished, Claire was planning to move into summer work mode to try to get some of the summer work underway and maybe avoid some of the additional staff we hire. Generally in the summer, we hire some additional staff, part-time staff, to help with summer work because there's so much to do in such a short amount of time. The goal was to start that summer work early. The governor's new definition of essential employees kind of threw a little monkey wrench into that plan. Essential employees in the custodial world now are just those who are cleaning and sanitizing spaces and other work that is just necessary, but not necessarily proactive summer work. So we've had to cut back a little bit on that, and we're hoping that that we can get back into that mode. We are going to have some people maintaining athletic fields and those types of things, but not to the degree that that we would like. So custodians are also going into all of the schools on a very regular basis to run the bubblers, flush the toilets, run the water. So that's a DEP recommendation, so that we don't have any issues with lead in the water when the water sits in the pipes for long periods of time. Sometimes we have some lead readings that are problematic. So the more we flush, the better. So that's what's happening in the plant facility for the most part. Anything that I can answer about that? All right, I'll move on to the education component. When we initially closed school, we abided by the recommendations of the Commissioner of Education, which was really to provide enrichment opportunities to our students, and we created what we called choice boards. Those were boards that were distributed through the website or in paper to families with a variety of enrichment learning opportunities that families could choose to engage in. We had many elementary families engage in those. I would say there were fewer secondary families engaging in those opportunities, but it was very hard for us to know who was actually taking advantage of those opportunities and who was not, because they were optional and we weren't really tracking it. We were making paper copies available at each school for families who did not have access to technology or who had internet challenges. And so that went on for about 3 weeks. And then when the school closure period was extended and the recommendations from the Department of Education were to now have a true remote learning program where learning opportunities were no longer optional but were required, we shifted to a remote learning situation. We have every class, every course is every teacher, during the first couple of weeks, we had all teachers engage in professional development, and they learned the Google Suite and Google Classroom. So every teacher has a Google Classroom set up now, and they are sending out assigned assignments to students on a weekly basis. Those assignments are designed to take about 2.5 hours per subject area per day. So a total of about half the time that students would spend in class with us, a total of about 12.5 hours a week of work. This is very much aligned with what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidelines were for remote learning. And those teachers are also holding live video sessions with students at least once a week. We've asked teachers to keep those live video sessions to less than an hour or less per week, given that high school students and middle school students have 5 classes minimally per day. That would be about 5 hours of virtual class time per week per student. And in the elementary level, it's similar, about an hour per day, an hour per week of online classes. Sometimes those are class meetings, sometimes they're small group instruction. We're also providing some special education supports to students under this new guideline as well. And those are the plans for those delivery of special education students are being developed with consultation from the educators, our team chair people, and parents. That's new and very tricky for, many of our students have a certain number of hours required in their individualized education program. Some of those hours are for services that are difficult to deliver in a virtual environment. So we're doing our best with that, as are all other school districts in the Commonwealth. But that's probably one of our biggest challenges, is providing the services that our students on IEPs or with 504 plans need. And so that's where we are with our educational services. We have received a lot of feedback from parents. Much of it has been positive. We also understand that this is very challenging for many of our families. Many parents are working from home. They are trying to balance their needs to fulfill their professional responsibilities, as well as trying to support their students. If they have more than one child, it's a very tough balancing act. So we've tried to make it as manageable as possible for families, and we've taken any input that we've gotten from families and tried to, he is experiencing challenges. We're trying to work with them to figure out what will work. How can we help them? How can we provide what they need? We've also distributed technology, which I'm sure you've heard about. Last week we distributed Chromebook devices to elementary students, and the week before to middle high school students. So we've had a fair number of devices go out into the community and into households, and that's helped, I think, to support families that were finding it difficult to manage one computer and 3 children and maybe 1 or 2 adults who were trying to all use technology simultaneously. So I think that's been a help. I'll stop there, and you can, if you have any questions about educational services, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. The central office team is working. We're currently, most of the work that we do at central office has, for those of us who focus on the educational component, the work has changed significantly, really trying to support teachers in figuring out how to do remote learning and do it well. So the directors of curriculum and myself have spent a great deal of time working with principals and academic coordinators and teacher leaders who are then supporting the teachers on the ground to get their remote learning plans up and running. So we've been doing a great deal of that. We have many meetings with Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We have regular meetings with the Commissioner of Education, regular meetings with Jay Sullivan, who is in the Finance Department at the Department of Education, and then at least a weekly meeting with the head of Special Education Services and English Learner Services to continue to provide us guidance, answer questions about all of the many things that we grapple with that we don't necessarily have answers to. So that consumes a great deal of our time. We are also just maintaining the regular district functions, paying our bills, managing the HR questions that arise, and payroll. Those types of functions, of course, are still underway. So many of us are trying to work at home as much as we can so that we have fewer than 10 people in the office at any given time. We're trying to balance the number of people who are present in the office. We try to maintain our social distancing and all of those things. But in order to keep everyone healthy, those of us who can work from home as much as possible, and those mostly in the financial office have to be in the office to do some of their functions, so they are in more regularly. Dan?
Just have a question.
You have a question?
Did you have any in the administration or teachers wise, just because of whatever reason, their own family situation or whatnot, just say we can't do it? No.
No, I would say that our teachers especially our teachers with young children, were very overwhelmed at first, trying to balance everything. I think it's just newness of the situation, so many new things to learn, feeling very disconnected from their students and worrying a lot about their students and what was happening for their students, and trying to be as available for their students as possible. In fact, some of the things that we heard from some families in those initial few weeks was, your teachers are reaching out to me too much, and it's hard to balance because I'm trying to make sure that if I have 3 children, that my 3 children are all getting to their individual class meetings, and I'm getting lots and lots of emails. So all well intentioned, but we did try to balance that a little bit. I think we've reached a better balance maybe. But we really wanted folks to know that we were there for them and that we were available, and but that was a little overwhelming for some people. On the other hand, some people wanted more. So I think everyone's in a unique and difficult and very difficult circumstances. So trying to strike the appropriate balance.
Thanks.
I think really that's, there, you may have some questions about, we're still working with, as you probably know, we had several field trips that we had to cancel toward just before and just after the school closure period. We are still working with some of those vendors to get appropriate refunds for families. The Washington DC trip, I think we've worked that trip out now. I think families will be getting refunds. Those refunds will be going out very soon. I think the families was in the range of $100. Unfortunately, that families would lose, maybe a little bit less, maybe $80. Some of the others were still working with those travel companies to work those fees out and to get as much of a refund as we can for family or vouchers for future travel. So those things are in the works. Spring athletics, I think I get an email a day from Mr. Myville about the MIAA and how they're really working hard to maintain that spring athletic season. I think, I'm not sure, depending on when the governor makes a decision about the duration of the school closure, whether spring athletic contests will be possible or not, but we're still waiting on that. We did, as you know, decide to continue holding April vacation. Some districts did not. We really made that decision based on the hope that we will be able to get our students back into the classrooms before the end of the school year, and wanting to maintain as much time at the end of the year as possible. If we are able to get our students back into the classrooms, being able to assess where they are academically and will help us tremendously to plan for the fall. We know that there will be gaps. There will be a lot of gaps. Some students, some families are able to support their children at home through this better than others, just because of personal circumstances. And so we're hoping, that was our reasoning in not continuing our remote learning through April vacation, is just hoping that if we are able to get back, we'll have a few extra days at the end of the school year that will allow us to better plan for how we'll be able to support our students, especially in the fall, when hopefully we'll all be back for good.
So,
Okay.
just real quick on that a little bit, there's many rumors about many things out there, and it doesn't help when all different states are doing all different things. So this is not a cornering question by any means, but has there been any indication of a date where there might be some determination on the rest of the year?
Well, we generally have a conference call once a week with the Commissioner of Education. And last week's call, toward the end of the week, he indicated that he felt the governor would make a decision late last week, which obviously did not happen, or early this week. So we have another call with the Commissioner of Education at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I had hoped that we would have a decision by the governor at that point. One of the agenda items on that call is to discuss plans for future school closure. So I definitely do not get the feeling that the Commissioner of Education has a great deal of advance notice as to when the governor will make such decisions. The first time he made it, the Commissioner of Education called a meeting with superintendents and said, the governor's going to make an announcement. He didn't say what the announcement was. The governor's going to make an announcement, and it's going to happen in 15 minutes. I have to get off this call to go there, wherever that was. And then it turned out that it was a little bit longer than that because the president was actually having a press conference. So the governor waited until after the president's press conference. The second time was on a Sunday, and we got an email, superintendents got an email from the Superintendents Association saying there's going to, I think it was about 11 a.m. He said at 11:30, the commissioner is going to get on with superintendents, make yourself available. So we did, and it was the same situation. At that point, he said in 5 minutes, the governor's going to make an announcement to close school for, and he said, you know, keep this under your hat. So we all tuned into the governor's press conference, and there again, he made the announcement. So so I don't think the commissioner knows a lot in advance. I think there was a lot of speculation that it might have happened over the weekend, but I would imagine that we'll hear in a day or two. It's really, May 4th is right around the corner. I don't anticipate that we'll be back for May 4th, but if we were to come back, there's an awful lot of planning that needs to happen no matter when we come back, as to how to make sure that we're planning for the safe return of students and staff to schools. So so the more advanced notice that we can have, the better.
Okay, it feels to me, I agree with you. May 4th seems a little far-fetched, and just what people are saying and what it feels like is it's going to be a real challenge to convince people to go back, and that might be one of the biggest factors in determining things. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, and we wouldn't ask you for that, but I'm assuming that you guys have discussed all the different scenarios that may sort of happen, and hopefully you get some indication soon.
Well, we've already heard from families that have said, not many, but some have said, no matter what, we're not going to send our children back. So there's a lot of unknowns. If the governor allows us to open, as to how will we continue to support families who choose not to send their children back to school. What will that look like? And not knowing what that number of families is, what kinds of supports those children will need. If the other things, if other people, if other folks are allowed to return to work, what will, so there are many unknowns as this unfolds. And I think the longer it lasts, the more, there are more and more iterations of what could possibly happen, and considerations in planning that will need to add to our plan, to be honest. So we are planning, but there's still a lot of planning to do, to be honest.
Yep.
Sure. I don't know how well you can hear me, but I had a question about the remote learning. I know that's a very important piece to this all, especially moving forward. We don't know how much longer we'll be quarantined the kids, but how much work per day should the kids in high school be getting? I've got a 9th grader, and I'm not seeing a lot. I did hear you say something about 5 hours per week. Am I correct?
So for each class in the high school, they should be about, for each class in the high school, they should be getting about 2.5 hours per week. So a total of 12 and a half hours per week. Were you able to hear that?
12 and a half hours total. Yep. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you.
So are there any other questions that I can answer for you tonight?
Oh, great, Dr. Muir, I really appreciate you coming on, and it's different to hear it directly from the schools, as Dan alluded to, some of the rumors and some of the decision-making processes. So I appreciate you speaking to the board and the public. So thank you for coming tonight.
And I'd like to just say as well, I know, especially leading up to this initial closure, how busy you unbelievably were. But I do appreciate you sort of surprisingly, I gotta say, immediately sort of getting back to me and some of the concerns that the town of Hubbardston had there. So we really appreciate it.
And if you hold on 1 second, Mark Wiggler's in the crowd, so to speak, and has his hand raised. So I would like to try this. So we're going to let Mark talk. Mark, if you unmute, if you want to speak.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Sheila, I just had a quick question. I came in a little late to the meeting, I guess. I thought it started at 7. Was it? Did somebody change the time or no?
6:30.
I don't know why I got an email. I thought the email said 7, but it must be me. Getting old. How's the loaner, Chromebook program working? Did you talk about that at all, or I'm just wondering?
Yes, so I mentioned that we had loaned devices. We have, we've loaned, I think I have the numbers here. We've loaned about 375 devices to the middle high school and about 325 devices to elementary school students so far. We anticipate that some families are choosing to use paper copies. Some families have internet challenges, and so the devices won't help them because they don't have internet access or adequate internet access. Some of those families are primarily in New Braintree, where internet access is very challenging. I'm not turn my light on. I feel like I'm sitting in the dark. Oh, what's that? And then the other issue is some families actually told us that they kind of saw this coming and went out and bought devices for their children. So that was fortunate for them that they were able to do that. So we anticipate that if this closure goes longer, that the demand for devices will increase as children, especially at the secondary level, realize that the remote learning is required, even though we think we've made it very clear to children. I think some of them, are a little bit slow in getting connected to the remote learning requirements. So I think at the end of next week, we anticipate doing a survey of all families, students, and our teachers to gather more information about how remote learning is going, what some of the challenges are, what some of the benefits are. We have a really good process for making sure that we're being connected with all families. All of the principals are asking teachers to check in with them if they haven't heard from a student within 3 days. They let the principal know, and then the principal and guidance counselors and others reach out to those families to make sure that they're getting all the information that they need, and that they're getting the support that they need. So as of early last week, there were only 20 families that we had, or 20 students across the district that we had not heard from for the school closure, and those were at the secondary level. And Mr. Devine was making personal phone calls to those families to make sure that they had what they needed and that they were connecting with the work as much as they possibly could. So we have loaned lots of devices.
Jeff?
Mr. Williams has a question?
Yes. Just curious, what is happening with the grading, the grades for the second trimester?
So the second trimester grades have closed except for students who owe work. So the grades are closed, but we had, when the school closure period started, we had 2 days remaining in the second trimester. And so teachers were uncomfortable with closing grades without allowing students those 2 extra days because some students depend on those 2 remaining days to get some work completed, some assessments done. So if students have completed all of their work, their grades are closed, but we haven't posted those grades yet. But if the students have some work that was owed that they could have done within that 2-day period, we're extending the opportunity for students to complete that work before posting the grades. So the end of trimester 2 grades are sort of on hold right now, except at the elementary school, report cards went out because they're not so dependent on the end of a course like the high school courses are. So you should be, if you have a student who's in the high school and has completed all of their trimester 2 work, the grades are available in online in the Aspen system. So students can look at their grades and what their final grade for trimester 2 is, but report cards are not.
You said high school. What about the middle school?
Same for middle school.
On Aspen?
Yes.
Thank you.
One other thing I wanted to mention was graduation. I know that's on a lot of people's minds. They're curious about what's going to happen with graduation, and certainly seniors are concerned about that, as well as the parents of seniors. We decided that we would have the seniors' last day be consistent with what it was in the school calendar, and that graduation would remain June, I think it's June 5th. We're not sure exactly what graduation will look like. We're trying to plan for that. We want to make sure that we celebrate our seniors and that they have the opportunity to have as much of a graduation ceremony as we can possibly provide for them. So we are tossing around some different ideas about what that might look like. I know there are some school districts that are doing video type graduations, and we're exploring a lot of different options for what graduation would look like. Some school districts have put graduation off already and have decided to hold it later in the summer, maybe in July and August. We're a little bit reluctant to do that. We really would like to honor our seniors around the time frame that they would typically graduate. You know, some seniors go off into the military and those types of things, and they wouldn't be available necessarily to take part in a graduation ceremony if we put it off too long. So we're hoping to hold it in June, in early June, as we typically would in some fashion. So we're working on that, and more information will be forthcoming once we have a definite plan.
Fireworks. I heard fireworks there.
Okay, well, I haven't heard that yet, but.
Anything else from the board? Or anyone else from anyone who is an attendee?
No one I can see right now.
Okay. Anything in closing from you, Dr. Muir?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has at any point. So if you would like another update at some point, please feel free to let me know. I'm happy to attend any of your meetings at any point and fill you in as to what's happening.
All right. Well, we appreciate it once again for coming here tonight, and good luck with everything. Good luck to us all.
Yes, good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ryan, I'm gonna move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna invite Travis into the room for the next part.
So our next item on the agenda is item 3B, which is the fiscal year 21 through 25 road maintenance plan. This is an annual update.
All right, so, and I do see that there's some folks in the audience, so we're gonna bring Travis into this room and then start a presentation, and then the board will speak, and then if anybody has any questions, raise your hands or send it in the chat. We did not get any email or any non-meeting requests that we need to read and share. So I will just jump into that. Okay, and just sending Travis a note here. Okay, 1 second, please. There we go. Okay, everyone can see the presentation.
Yes.
All right, so this road plan is a draft to be presented to the board and the public tonight. You're familiar with this. So Travis and I put this together. This is our recommendation to the board and the community. Just in summary, this is a report that looks to organize the next 5 years, provide information, and offer the board recommendations on how to use our what I'll call minimal funding, which is $354,000 a year that we get from Chapter 90 assistance. And that was the number that we were given before the world turned upside down. So I do think they'll hold this number, but we can't guarantee it at this point, given the state of the world.
Ryan,
So-
just a quick comment. I just want to add to the sort of
Sure.
the original summary. So this is we'll call it year 2 of this. So this is not from scratch, right? So there are things that are changed without a doubt, but it is an update from what was originally presented last year.
Right. So just some considerations for people who are looking at this. Projects, we try to group them to save money. We try to create a cost-effective pavement management program for the town. And the board has committed in recent years to using Chapter 90 for just road maintenance. A lot of towns will use Chapter 90 for a variety of things, from purchasing vehicles to filling holes around town. The board is really committed to fixing the roads in town as they are a top priority for our residents and our officials. And this slide talks about some state-funded maintenance to include Route 68 North, which has already started and will continue through the summer. The Town Center project, which is now firmly looking like it's going to be in FY22 if the MPO, which is the Montezut Planning Organization, accepts the current draft they have. Hubbardson is in 2022 for the Town Center project, not 2023 as originally slated. So that's 2 years away at this point if everything holds. And then this we get a lot of questions about Lombard Road. It's a very expensive road to fix. Most of our comments come from Lombard Road in terms of emails to me and Travis. We are applying again for a STRAP grant with our town engineers and pushing our legislators heavy. And I can't emphasize to people enough to push the legislators to help us with our STRAP grant for Lombard Road. That'll be applied for in August. I'm going to go through these real quick because the board and public are pretty familiar with these, but Route 68 has been a focus prior to me and Travis, really, but through good work of the board and our officials, we got a lot of state money to do Route 68 and completed the Rutland line to Brigham Street. And this year, folks will see from the Curtis Reckfield to Gardner line, another very large and important project. And then the Town Center project, as I mentioned, would be the third phase of this this road stretching from Rutland all the way to Gardner. So an incredible use of and leveraging of state funds, using local effort and local funds to make that happen.
And let me just add to that real quick. So when that's all done, it's going to be about $12 million worth of construction. It will have cost the town over about a 10-year period, $500,000. which is primarily design work. So $500,000 investment for 12 million is great.
And I went into detail about the STRAP grant. This slide and this presentation will be available to the public. Talks about our application for 2021, which will focus on Lombard, pending any changes from the board. Here are some targets. Williamsville Road is in consideration if we were to get a STRAP grant, and then look to the future. That would be the type of road we would be looking to apply for. But Lombard Road is the full focus right now. And then the town paving projects, so that's what most people are familiar with, is what is the town doing with its money to pave roads? We call this Chapter 90. That's the state funding mechanism. Chapter 90 is the money we get to do this. And this is the recommended plan. So last year we did Morgan Road, Underwood Road, and Highbridge Road, a very successful project. Some pictures of the paving that was done. Total feet paved was a little over a mile, and maintained roads was a little over 1.37 miles for a total project of 2.42 miles and a cost of $290,000. And that included all kinds of work like drainage, berms, and other things that will help keep these roads in good shape. So that was an underserved part of our road community that we were able to help last year. It's a quick map of that.
Brian, I'd just like to say that, yeah, those roads were horrible and that came out beautiful. What an enhancement to the town, getting that done.
So moving on to this year, these have already been scheduled. Flag Road for a full depth reclamation, about a $200,000 piece of this project. And then Hill Road Extension, Williamsville Road, and Mount Jefferson Road. So again, this is this clustering that we're talking about, help save money. Here is a picture of that. So again, a road that is in, some roads that are in terrible condition, and then taking advantage of the mobilization of the road work to take care of some other roads in that area. So
Hey,
pretty big.
Sorry, it's so hard to jump in at the right time, I know. When do the bids go out for this?
So we have received the bids, and they came in very favorable.
Okay, so my next question is, do we have the ability to extend any of, based on the bids, to extend any of the areas, or does that get put into, additional work through the DPW?
So I can say because they came in favorably, and Travis is here, I'll let him speak at the end of this, but he has pushed this to the limits that procurement allows us in order to extend these projects, as he always does, to the max possible. There's a certain amount of work that would be added that would trigger a rebidding process that we don't want to do.
Okay.
And some pictures of Flag Road and Williamsville Road here. Flag Road is, there are roads in town, and I know some people here to speak to their roads, but Flag Road is definitely one of our worst. Okay, and this is talking about the future here. So these are, again, just recommendations to the board. Going to give the full recommendation for a couple years, and this is what we're here to present and talk about. So originally, in 2022, we had recommended Elm Street, Parsons, Berry Road Cutoff, and Brigham. But because of the Route 62 culvert replacement and the detour that's coming this year, it makes sense to push that off. So moving the plan up a year would then work on Williamsville Road for a pretty significant chunk of paving, Simons Hill Road, and Ed Clark Road. And you can see the details here on the report of what that would look like. And here is the mapping of those projects on Williamsville Road, Simons Hill, and Ed Clark Road.
Ryan, could you just go back one slide, please?
Sure.
So just a quick little reminder for those who may not be fully in tuned on the time frame for the expected time frame for the Route 62 culvert replacement.
Yes, so that should be, and again, everything is in flux right now, but that should be happening or starting this summer.
Okay, thanks.
And that's going to close down that road, which is what we're talking about with detours and trying to maximize the flow of traffic and other issues. It wouldn't be good to do all of that at once. would shut down kind of a quarter of the town. So here's the mapping for what we're proposing for FY22. And some pictures. I think for FY23, this is the part that we discussed, used to be in the 2022 slot and has now been pushed because of the Route 62 culverts. So that includes some very necessary work. And I will say this part really connects to the town center project. So again, waiting a year allows us to finish the town center project, hopefully, if everything stays in the proper slotting, and then connect these to really finish out the center. That's Elm Street, Brigham Street, a couple sections of Brigham Street, Berry Road cutoff, and Parsons Road. And that looks like this. So as you can see, connects very nicely to the town center project. We would start right where Brigham and Berry Road hit Route 68. And here are some pictures here. The DPW has done some work to make these roads last and to try and mitigate the damage, but it is very obvious that they need the full reconstruction. Okay, then FY24. And again, these are proposals, and it's hard to project out this far, but we do want to show the level of thought and the depth of the planning that goes into something like road work. So in FY24, we're proposing Thompson Road for Full Road and Cruise Road, which are two pretty big roads, and then Route Road. And I just want to mention in all of these, the colors that are in blue on the presentation, that is dependent on the town committing to using some capital money in what's already in the capital plan, an additional 100,000 for road maintenance work, which is something that was recommended by the CIPC and the town staff. So it's not necessarily given, but it just shows how much extra you can do with a little bit of investment. So here's 2024, and another good chunk in quarter of the town. Some pictures of Thompson and Cruise Road. Okay, and then we get to, Dan, as you said, this is an update. So this would be a new year, so to speak, in the plan. And that's to address some of the issues in town on Pitcherville Road. This is FY25. Pitcherville Road is definitely a road that needs some focus. Birches Road. And then again, in blue here, we have Cross Road and a section of Ragged Hill Road that makes sense for this mobilization. As you can see, this would be a very large project and able to combat some of the issues that we have in town here. And here are some pictures. We have done some work in this area to mitigate these, but some of the work is temporary as best, as some of our residents have told us before. We do our best to maintain these roads, but the weather tends to mitigate some of our patches. Okay, then folks want to know what's going to happen past 2025. And again, just want to emphasize that if the town staff could wave a magic wand and double, triple our funding, we want to fix all the roads. We don't want anyone to have difficulty with their roads, and we know that there are roads out there that need some work. So this is just a plan that fits into the funding levels that we have currently, because there's only so much money to do this work. So beyond 2025, some roads that need to be considered are High Street, Dogwood North, Laurel Street, Geordie Lane, Bickford, Tohoto, Forest, and Brookside, which is a combination of roads, as most of you know, and then Dogwood South. And just want to emphasize, this isn't priority order, but this is just showing roads that are in the planning and how much it would cost to properly fix those roads.
Right, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we did this last year and we had a open meeting, whatever, wrong terminology, but we had a lot of residents come in to comment on our initial 5-year plan. And again, at the time, we were still thinking about the override that almost passed but didn't, which was going to double the amount of roads we were going to be able to complete in a given year. But still, there were a lot of representatives, residents from some of these streets I'm looking at here, specifically at that meeting, making cases for their roads. It's a little surprising to me that with the additional year we added with this year, meaning, as you just said, there's an update, but we added a year because it's a year later, that some of these roads weren't on there. And if you and Travis could eventually sort of get to why this year added didn't have some of these roads. I know it's a difficult question, but still, I think it's one that's going to be asked. So I guess I would ask it myself.
Okay, and I don't mind. I get road questions a lot, so and I don't mind answering that. So it's not a matter of want. It is. If I were to tell you the roads that we get the most comments on as staff, and then I forward those to the board, of course, and I'm sure the board gets their questions the same. But the roads that get the most comments are Pitcherville, Dogwood North, and Lombard Road are where residents really are active in their advocacy for their roads. So in the later part of this projection, this is still, we're looking at how can we fit things together and how can things be pieced together. So if you look at the year that was added and the cost, so basically this is an answer for me, and Travis is here to certainly answer, but I wanted to speak to the thinking is you either do Pitcherville or you do Dogwood because of the cost of those particular roads. And High Street has sort of the same issue. And it's such a big road. It's just expensive to fix. So it's that 1 year. And then sure, you could see a plan where you try and put Pitcherville and Dogwood North together, but already your costs are there, and then you're losing that connectivity in terms of putting the projects together and saving some money in that mobilization. So that's why it's being proposed. It doesn't mean that, that's why we're presenting this draft, to hear comments from the board, town officials, and obviously residents as to where these monies need to be dedicated. And again, if we had been successful last year or added more money to this plan, and now one of my worries is, given the financial state that we have, can we afford to add capital money, which was going to, again, enhance this plan? Are we going to have to bring some of that money back? That would change the plan too. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the thinking that went into this.
Okay.
And then the ongoing road maintenance, as people know, we grade our dirt roads, repair potholes, and have added some equipment lately that's going to help us do even better job. I think our teams do a great job of pothole maintenance, but we're going to be even better at it with some of the equipment that we're adding. And then crack sealing is a preventative measure. Travis is going to talk a little bit about some preventative work that's needed, right? Because this is all talking about just fixing roads, but we also need to maintain roads. If we don't do the maintenance, then these roads turn into roads that need full repairs, and you're seeing the cost that's attached to those. So if we had our full wish, it would be not only to replace roads that need fixing, but also to maintain some of the ones we have so they don't get to that level of disrepair. Everyone's seeing these this crack sealing that prevents water and other issues from getting into the road and really breaking up that road and causing it to go into disrepair. And this basically summarizes what we've talked about so far. Stop here. Okay, so oh, here's Travis. So Travis, do you want to add anything?
On the road plan, we do our best to maximize our monies, obviously, and where we do the work, we take everybody's, request into consideration and do our best to try to put them into a plan. I mean, with limited money and funds, it's hard to, take care of everybody's concerns. So we do the best we can. Like Ryan said, we switched around 23 and put it into 22 because of the culverts being done. They said possibly it could run 2 years, that they would close it during the construction season and then reopen it for the winter. So we'd be able to have a through road, and then to replace the second culvert, they would have to close it down a year after. But sometimes things go well and they can get it done all in one. We did put on fiscal year 26, which is the new year, we did put the dogwoods in there, Geordie and Laurel, which were concerns at the meeting last year because they weren't on the list. So now they are on the list. And we're doing our best to help find some patchwork for these areas that will last. So until this time, obviously. I also talked with Gardner, PJ Keating, that's doing Gardner Road, expressed highly that we wanted millings, and he has no problem with that. So we're going to stack as many as we can. And he also said that he would deliver to certain roads for us if we were there. So we'd save on delivery also of our own trucks, which will help. Allow, with getting many millings, allows us to put thicker, greater thicknesses of millings, which actually make a better road. So hold up better. We have the roller, and we do have the calcium to help bind them together. We did do that section of Pitcherville where we were having some issues with. We did it before the winter last year. It seemed to hold up pretty well. We put about 4 inches or so on there, and it did make a difference. We got a crown to the road. That piece of road there is really hard. There's really no drainage whatsoever. It really needs a paved job with some berm to direct the water to where it needs to go.
Travis, for the Chapter 90 work that will be taking place soon, have you done all of your prep work?
We have to do a culvert on Williamsville. We had assessed them all. We went into the basins to see what needed what, and we have one that's rotted. I've already talked with the chief. We're gonna close it down here pretty soon once the weather allows us to. We have to replace one section of it. I think there's one plug, so we gotta find a way of unplugging it. Other than that, in the bid specs, they do have sections in there where they will rebuild up to like a foot down, and they will raise the structure to where it is to meet the pavement when they repave it. So it's already in the bid for that part of the finish work. But culvert wise, we're fixing all that before it gets paved. So that's the section between Hale Road Extension and just about in front. You can see where the two pavements are different in front of Calico and Cream. It will be done from there to Hale Road Extension. That will be milled. It'll be a 1-inch leveling course and then 2 inches on top of that. It should be nice when it's done. Plus that section of Mount Jeff from Williamsville Road to Flag Road. All that drainage has been looked at. We have cleaned the edges of the road and cut them back. That has some drainage on it, and we looked at it. It was good. So they're going to actually full depth reclamation that road, put 4 inches of pavement on it. And Flag Road will be full depth reclamation, all that drainage, and we cut back all the shoulders, cut up the trees, upcut trees so they weren't hanging in the road, widen it up nicely, got it ready for this construction. Hale Road Extension has no drainage on it. but it's quite wide. We're gonna make it one width all the way through. And that road, we also cut the edges of the road back and upcutted the trees, which we had some of those pictures on Facebook showing the work we were doing. But that would be a big chunk of section right there. It'll look nice.
Just to, I guess, piggyback on Jamie's comments from before on how good last year looked. You know, from what you told us, and from what Ryan told us, you were all over those projects when they were being executed, and I'm sure that's your plan again. But that matters. So, you know, appreciate your efforts in advance for making sure what amounts we can get done with our money allocated to us that gets done sort of primo job like that.
I appreciate it, and it means as much as me as to all the residents there. You know, I understand it. You know, we plow it, we work on them. You know, and a resident calls, we're right on it, and the best as we can. You have to be on the contractors. Unfortunately, you know, you can't expect that they're going to do what's in the contract. Half the time when I'm standing there, they don't even know what's in the contract. I'm telling them what's in the contract.
That's why I
So,
said I'm one of them.
yeah. So I mean, and what's nice is that when I'm laying berm down, I can tell them to start here, stop here, and you know, it makes a world of difference. And is it a lot of work? Yes, but in the end, does it come out great? It does. So it matters, and you got to do what you have to do.
Sounds good. Anyone have
Travis.
anything else?
Sorry, Dan. Travis, one of the questions from people in attendance, and again, anyone that's attending the meeting can type in the chat or raise their hand to talk about this. But one of the questions was, are the number of residents traveling the road versus the cost of repair being taken into consideration? This came from Jacqueline Richardson.
Yes, we do. That's the thing is road count. You know, unfortunately, when you have a situation like we do, and we have, you know, roads that are in need of repair, you have to go after what road count is. And I do have on my computer, and I get them every year from the MPO of the number of cars traveled both ways on certain roads, main roads. Pitcherville being one, that was one I added last year. I'm able to add 2 a year, they usually ask. So I try to get roads that, you know, that are in disrepair that I know, and to see what the traffic count is. That also helps us on construction day also, but it also helps people understand that we're not just picking roads that are nothing, but are, you know, indeed traveled quite often by many people. So in order to do that and not just say it, is to prove it in numbers.
So for the board, I just wanted to just to piggyback on what Travis said. So this is a 5-year plan. So although we are already essentially done with FY 21 bidding it and starting the project up, if there was a 6-year to this plan, or the way Travis looks at it, because this year is already done, the next 5 years, just want to reiterate that next year would include the Dogwoods and Geordie Lane. So that would be the recommendation from Travis and I, based off costs, road counts, and everything, that it would be included in the next 5 years. It's just a quirk of the report that it's not set in a plan, but that would be our recommendation.
Okay. Anything from anyone else?
I don't have any other comments that I can see from the public.
Okay. Well,
We did have one more thing, Travis, if you want to talk about maintenance of roads briefly to the board and see where the board is with that.
Yes. I go to many classes, and obviously roads are my probably top priority because of what we have, you know, in front of us for road repair. So I want to do my best. I want to put down the best surface treatment and obviously use our money the best we can. So going to these meetings, there's a road score that each road should like has, and depending on where it is, and every meeting or class that I've gone to for training has stated that you can't just chase every bad road in town because you'll never get ahead. And so they show this, and what happens is that, just for an example, is that, and a good example is Hillville Road, Ragged Hill, and Hale Road. Now those roads are just about what, 5 years? I believe that the town had taken out that grant on them, something like that. They had done them at the same time. Now those roads right now are starting to ravel. They're losing the emulsion in them, and they're gonna start doing what exactly New Westminster's doing right now near Bemis through the just past the river. That's what raveling does. The tire itself falls apart, it loses the emulsion, and then it creates a pothole. That's where water wants to sit, and water is the enemy. So, and what I'm trying to get at is that obviously you look on this plan that we have, and it doesn't list any of those roads. But these roads that, yes, we did 5 years ago were a lot of money, and they're starting to fall apart already. So what we need to do is do a maintenance on them, which will last 5, 6, 7 years, which allows to get these other roads done, but yet not allow the roads that we've done to fall apart. Because if we, like, just an example, I can do, and this is without, I can give you the names of the roads, and they will give you an example of how many miles, and that's what they go by. They go by miles of road. How many miles of road do you do in a year? So I could do Cross Street, which would be from New Templeton Road to Rolling Woods. I could do Hale Road, New Templeton in the two sections from 68 to just past the swamp, and then from Cross Road to New Templeton line. I can do Hillville Road. I'd be able to do Woodview and Rolling Woods while we're right there with, hold on one second. Woodview and Rolling Woods, I wouldn't be able to do, but I would be able to do Ragged Hill on two sections, from 68 to Cross, and then from Cross to where they stopped about Birches. And then Old Princeton, the new section that we just had done a few years ago. I don't know if anyone's gone down there, but it is starting to fall apart. And then that would be also George Howard, because they're connected. Now, all that together, and this is, I did it on the high because there's 3 different levels depending on how the road is deteriorating. So I just did the high side of it. So all that there would be, say, 109,000. It would more likely be less because I went on the high side. But when it comes down to it, if I say I wanted to do those roads, they would come out and they would test each road to tell me which treatment they would use on it and how much, so that way it would really reduce, the cost. So with those roads that I just said, that would be 9.55 miles of road done for $100,000. That would hold us over for a good 5 to 6 years and have the roads that we spent the money on not deteriorate. But that just goes to show you for what little money, which I understand 100,000 is a lot of money, but for what it costs us to redo one road with full depth reclamation and pavement, and it doesn't even get us a mile. I can do 9.5, 9.5 miles for $100,000, and that could hold us over for that. And it's a restorative penetrating fog seal, they call it. What it does is it penetrates the asphalt and it rejuvenates it. In the midst of that, we do add a little bit of sand, which helps fill in the voids where the water is, and it binds together. You can't even tell once it's done that it's really on there. It's a little darker, but I did show you a picture of it, Dan, when I was we were there for the Main Street revealing. But what it does is it stops the pavement from deteriorating anymore and raveling, and especially this new pavement that's out, they're doing everything to cut back on oils in them and everything for the environment. And there is not one person that I've talked to, for DPW director to people teaching the classes, you all say the same thing, is that this new pavement is not holding up, this super pave, they call it. And that's what Mass DOT wants you to go over to. You can keep the old specs, but they're pretty much phasing it out. So unfortunately, we all kind of have our hands tied. And on something like this, to a small town that has limited funds, you know, we're not the only town in this, and we're not the only town that feels this way. And I think it's a poor judgment on the way they've come with their asphalt, because when I did a class through Mass DOT talking about the super pave, they actually told us that they did 2 sections of Route 9 around the Quabbin. And I actually rode these roads, and this road, and I went over both sections, and I did it when they did it, and I've gone over a year later. And the funny part is that the section that I thought rode well fell apart faster than the part that didn't ride so well. So it's really a crapshoot, which I hate to say, and it doesn't, you know, make me look good if the road's falling apart, but I'm only putting down what the state's allowing me to put down. So doing this preventative maintenance is going to be something that we really need to look into, and that it will make a difference. We will get ahead of the game. It will get our pavement score up, and people will see that. Ryan and I had.
Travis, if I
Ryan?
can jump in. So the reason why this is coming to the board is, if we were to give a full recommendation, me getting advised by Travis and bringing it to you, that there would be a year in here where we focused on maintenance and not just repairing roads. But we know, given some of the conversations last year, the guidance from the board and other things, what that means to folks that are at the end of this plan or not even on the plan yet. So there is a solution. I don't just want to bring you a problem. So there is a reserve of Chapter 90 funds that we keep. So if you look at last year, the total cost of the project was $280,000. We get $350,000. So some of that money was used to extend the plan for this year, right, to make more paving happen. And then each year we hope to come in under bid and create this type of reserve. The reserve is also very useful for if we need extra money for some project that comes up, or if there's a major repair that we didn't know that was going to happen, or all the things that we use reserve funds for. So if we wanted to do maintenance courses, we would have to use some of our, or all of our, or none of our Chapter 90 reserve. So we're looking to see what the board's opinion is on that. We do think that in the past, this type of maintenance has been avoided, which means that you have expensive fixes that need to come, and then you can't catch up, as Travis said. So the board's comfortability with us dipping into the reserve fund to do additional maintenance or not, and that's also a political decision, because it means that you wouldn't be using that money to do, say, fix a road. But if you look at the costs of fixing roads, I don't know that the reserve could even fix another road. So just opening it up to the board's comments on any of that.
I think it makes great sense. I mean, it's just the responsible thing to do. You know, we some of us live or travel on those roads. That was actually 2012, 2013, Trav. So it was like 7 or 8 years ago now. And you know, it's obvious what's happening. So to just pretend like it's not would be irresponsible, and for that, incorporating that into the overall scheme, I think is a responsible thing to do.
Yeah, I think the preventative maintenance is a good idea. You know, an ounce of medicine for the pound of cure that. Thanks, Travis.
I honestly didn't get any of that.
I speak a little bit of Robot Jamie, so he was saying that he believes the preventative maintenance is a good thing to do.
All right. I really just wanted to, show you, I went through a lot to get this to show people, not just something that we're thinking about and, off the cuff. Did a lot of research on it, and I've always kept $100,000 in the Chapter 90 for a backup in case any emergency. So obviously we hadn't gotten any of the extra 100 this year, like we were, the pending 100,000 that is added from the town because of lack of funds, which I get. So, but when we had talked about it, Ryan, myself, I had mentioned that and this preventative maintenance and how much we could get done and save these roads so they don't deteriorate. And he was in agreement, and we just didn't know how much we wanted to use of it, if it was all, half, or none. So that's why we're bringing it here. So hopefully we could just figure out what we're going to do and move forward.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Ryan, you got a comment?
I do. So this is a comment from Debbie Chamberlain, who's in attendance. So does the cost of maintenance factor into the order in which roads are going to be paved? And then millings were supposed to be removed last year from Dogwood North and has made the road nearly impassable. It's not used in New Jersey because the dust is cancer causing. The millings in the coal patch will never last 5 to 7 years. Is there any plan to make these roads last until they can be paved? The cost of the vehicle repair to the residents in this neighborhood is astronomical. There's a few pieces in there, Travis, if you want to address some of that, and I'd be happy to as well, or the board.
As on some of them, we went in and we swept this year, the beginning of the year. I have pictures of it. We swept Geordie and Dogwood along with Laurel Street, and we swept off all the millings. And I have pictures of showing that those millings filled in the potholes nicely, which we wanted to do. Unfortunately, when we put them down, we didn't put them down thick enough because we were trying to give everybody a little taste, hopefully to help with the road. We do put them on Dogwood South, and they do like them very much. They asked us to. And when we did, we actually had someone from Dogwood North say, we sure wish that they would put some on our road. So we were looking to do in Dogwood North, if we have the funds, is to hot patch like we did to Elm Street, High Street, and Brigham. So
can you address the 5 to 7 year comment, Travis? Like, what is our plan to make it last where we have it on the plan?
Rephrase that. Like, what do you mean last until 7 years? I mean, the hot mix patch that we put down, it's all debatable on how long it lasts. I mean, it's a temporary patch, as a cold patch is, and as is millings. I've never once said that the millings was a permanent patch. It was there to, be a temporary, and then when we go to mill it up, it would be added to the base to help with structure.
So I think the answer is not to speak for you here, but to speak for you here. I think the answer is to the question directly, which is with the millings and all the coal patches, it will never last 5 to 7 years. I think the only appropriate answer, if 2026 is the year for those roads to get done, and that is 5 to 7 years from now, is that multiple iterations of the same sort of treatment, such as hot patches, is the only way it would last 5 to 7 years, right? I'm just trying to literally answer the question. Is that accurate?
Correct. That is it, correct.
Okay, and just hosting duties, just want to make sure that everyone in the crowd, in case they join late, if they have any questions, now would be the time to raise your hand or type it. I'm not seeing any yet, but I will stop if there
Yes.
is any.
Okay, well, we again, we can, as we said before, we can come back to stuff. We're not, you know, shutting the door on it, but it is, we have been doing, going through our items slowly, and not quite surely yet because they're such important items. So I do want to move on. Again, if we have to peel back, that's fine, but if no one has anything else on this directly now, I think we should move on to the Q3 financial report.
Okay, just while Travis is here, I'm sorry, Dan, just trying to maximize his time. He did present a surplus list. He gathered everyone's surplus from the town. We discussed it last time. The board had some questions on the bidding platform that we were using and if there were any costs. I did send that out to the board. It's $30 a vehicle and $5 in groups for any non-vehicle items. And the reason for that cost is to package things for sale on the site, Auctions International, that we use. So we cannot sell those items until the board declares them surplus. So looking to see if the board has any questions while Travis is here, if they'd like to get any more information or take a vote tonight on it.
The vote meaning to declare them as surplus?
Yes, I'll put the list up
Okay.
for the board to see. And this is the same list from last meeting.
The only one that might not be on there is the Chevy Malibu because he's trying to get a title for it.
Which wouldn't change the board's vote. We don't use the vehicle, so if you declare it surplus when it is ready to sell, we can sell it.
Can we do the whole list as a single motion?
I'll make a motion. If you can hear me, I'll make a motion to declare the surplus equipment.
Jeff, the answer is yes, you can do it in one
All
motion.
right, I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Yes,
Roll call, Dan.
Yes,
and yes. Jeff,
yes,
Brian, I mean, Jamie,
Yes.
Chris.
yes.
Okay, unanimous.
All right, thank you, Travis. I'm
Yes.
kicking you out.
All right, thanks, Trev.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya. Okay, now we are item 3C, which is the Q3 financial report. Ryan.
So I know my bosses and I know the crowd. So this report could be done next week. So I'm recommending that we push this off so we can get to the rest of the agenda without staring at a bunch of numbers.
Sounds good. We will push this off to next week. That would be the April 27th.
Yes, next week.
Okay, so what's become a pretty normal item here is item under new business, item 4D, which would, anyway, item 4D would be the COVID-19 update.
I'm going to show the our COVID-19 information screen. Okay, and how people can get to this is on the main website. This red banner has any updates or information to include a detailed list of our response measures. So the only update that we have for you tonight, that I have for you tonight, is that the state is now reporting numbers by county. They're updating that daily, and then the by town numbers, which is there are people who are asking how many cases does Hubbardston have. That comes out every Wednesday. So that is updated every Wednesday. And I'm following through to the site. There's a link that here that says to find the official costs. Are you on the state website now with me? Did it jump to it?
Yeah,
What do you,
mass.gov, yep.
okay, so down in the reporting, if you scroll down, you can see cases by city and town. And then if you follow that link, it'll download a document for you to see. So Hubbardston is still reporting less than 5 cases in town. And you know, thankfully, all prayers attached, there are no deaths reported from Hubbardston. But for folks who are interested in that data, that's there. And just to remind people, our public health nurse, who we pay, the Montechusett Health Organization or it's a regional organization to have our public health nurse. They are in contact daily with our cases, monitoring any cases and any positives that we get from MAVEN, which is the infectious disease reporting system. And for lack of a better term, are virtually all over our cases to make sure that people are getting what they need and making sure that we're following up on any contacts they had, or to do our part to prevent that spread. So that's the entirety of the update, unless the board has any questions on that.
No. Thank you. Okay, so we have some warrant articles to discuss, carrying on with normal business, I guess I would call that again. Item 4E, which is the Board of Selectmen warrant articles discussion. So these are articles that are items that we've discussed previously, some recent, some a little bit further back, and then any ideas we may have for additional articles as we annually compile the list. So the first one there is what we talked about recently, which is A, which is changing selectmen to select board article. I guess we'll just, we'll talk about them in order and see if anyone has any comments on them. Item A, it seemed like everyone was in favor the last time we talked about it. Does anyone have anything they want to add?
Just to clarify, this is just to put them on the warrant, not necessarily if you're in favor of them or not.
Yep.
At this point.
Understood. True. Good point.
We all pretty much agree on that.
Right. And then B, which is funding the master plan final chapter article, which was discussed most recently by Alice and Francois when they joined us, which is going to be a great feat once it gets done. So that's that. If anyone has any comments on that.
Just an update to that. So what this would look like is, it hasn't been voted on by the planning board, but just giving the most information we have. Originally, MRPC quoted us at 14,000. We were able to negotiate that down to 11,000. So this would cost 11,000, this final chapter. We will try and seek grant funding, but this is just to secure it, to make sure that we have the money. If we don't need it, we won't use it. The planning board has indicated about, and Alice is in the room if anyone wants to speak with her, if she wants to speak, but it looks like the planning board would pick up about half of that with their revolving fund. So this would be approximately a $5,000 warrant article.
That's worth it. And item C was the final town center project funding. And I think I went through this last week, just a little bit more detail that gets us to our point now, which was submitted recently, the 75% design. That would get us to 100% authorized on the design side, and it would ensure that we can maximize our slot that we've recently looked like we're sliding into to accelerate the project further. So those are those three. And then there were, any additional articles. I guess I'll start with you, Ryan. Were there any additional articles that you sort of had on your mind to start this discussion?
No, just wanted to make sure in the first, and learning from some past, the draft that I present to you next week, I just want to make sure that it indicates everything that could be. So looking to make sure that I'm not confusing anybody by adding articles that the board no longer wants, or adding any article that I haven't seen. Those are the three that I'm tracking.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else? All right. Sounds good. We'll move on. Next item is 4F, which is the Ragged Hill land disposal, which let's just not confuse everyone on what that means.
It's the procurement term.
Procurement term for, putting the lots out to bid, which we recently did. And then the disposal would be to accept one of those bids, or the low bid, responsible bid. And that's what we're going to discuss now. You want to give us I know a lot of us know what's going on, but want to give us an update of how things went?
So the board was looking to, just a quick summary, the board was looking to dispose of 3 of the 5 lots that are up there, not to confuse anybody. So one was the land swap as part of the one of our pieces of land that we own up on Ragged Hill. The next one, the board agreed to try and seek an affordable housing option for. So then you have lots 3, 4, and 5, which is 218, 219, and 220, if you're looking at the parcels on Ragged Hill Road. So these were put out to bid successfully. I mean successfully in the procurement process with the help of town council. Those all came back on Monday, April 13th. Every bid that we received was in order, meaning that everything that was needed to be there was. So the results that I can present to you on lots 3, 4, and 5 are as follows. Let me call this up so you can see it, or the public can see it. And we can talk about it. Okay, so for lot 3, parcel 218, there was 3 bids. One from D2 Builders from Jefferson, Mass for $25,000. One from Dan Blanchard for $10,014, and one from Stephen Shepard of Winchton, Mass for $10,000. Those were the 3 bids for lot 3. Lot 4, did it switch to lot 4? Can you see parcel 219
Yes.
at the top? Okay, I never know when it switches or not. So for lot 4, D2 Builders was from Jefferson, Mass was the top bid at $25,000, and then Dan Blanchard for $10,014 was the other bid. This is for lot 4. And then lot 5, similar results. So D2 Builders, Jefferson, Mass for $25,000, and Dan Blanchard for $10,014. So the options the board has, pending any questions and conversation, is to accept any and all lot bids. You would be bound to the top bid at this point, or you can throw out every one of these bids and start the bid process over again. So those are the options. And you
Right.
can throw them out because they're not enough money. It was a question that I was anticipating. So if you don't think that's enough, you can throw them out. There's no reason why you can't throw them out if you don't want to, as long as you accept them in the order that they came.
That was my next question. So the order that they came, meaning that there was nothing in the contract that specifically stated that it was all 3 needed to get awarded, or was there?
In fact, it's the other way, that you can award each one individually. So if you just wanted to accept one of the lots, you could do that as well.
All right. Well, it's time to discuss this. So it's been 3 to 4 town administrators in on these lots being available through a couple of different times, where the first few times we put them out, there was no interest at all. So we now have some interest and we have some actual bids. So there's something to actually, talk about. Now, I guess my initial reaction was, as I went onto MLS and went onto Zillow and whatever else, immediately seeing the results here is it enough money? Because that's what we want to determine. It doesn't feel like it is, based on, just what land may or may not be available for, but it doesn't feel like lots in Hubbardston are selling that quickly either, meaning a number of them may be for 40 or 45,000, but they've been on there for 67 days, 127 days or whatever. So I guess, I've gone sort of full circle in my mind. I'm just giving my opinion. You guys are next, but I think I'm at the point where, it's literally been 5 years, and we finally got to a process where here we have a chance to get rid of some land that was part of a sort of senior center situation and funding agreement from years ago, that we would be able to get $75,000 of much needed money. And I wish it were $120,000, and I can probably be convinced, to swing back around and, wait for that and hope that, things turn around the next 6 months, a year or whatever, and then we're able to put it out again and get more interest and get higher bids, maybe, right? But I think where I'm at now is, we've spent just from some of you who are new too, we spent a lot of time on this, and we do have some responsible bids now. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Anyone have any thoughts?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I would consider selling one lot. I mean, they're not hurting us. It's just money in the bank. Those lots are just going to go up over time. We're not paying taxes on them. But I would entertain selling one lot. It would generate some interest there. Maybe a house would get built, and then, hey, another year from now, 2 more lots next. Someone builds a nice house. Now there's 2 lots next for sale again. Maybe the price would go up. And generate some more interest. So I would entertain the thought of selling one lot for $25,000, and maybe putting that towards the road plan that Travis spoke of.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, so what is the cost
And I'll
to put these
put that
lots
in
out
the
to
comments
bid?
too.
Wait, go, Jamie, Chris, can you go ahead again? It was a little bit jumbled because Jamie was talking, but Chris, can you go?
Yeah. What is the cost to put these lots out to bid, and how often can we do that?
So I'll start the answer, and Ryan, when you unmute, you can. Overall, pretty minimal. I mean, there's some filing fees and some time that it takes to do it. But there are certain rules and restrictions on when you list something out to bid, and then it's got to be a certain amount of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, when the bid's going to come. But really, you can keep doing it. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and give some more information? But it's not a huge cost by any means.
Correct. So it's not exactly this, but you could do this about once a month if you wanted to. You could put them right back out to bid again. The cost for the board is your time, my time, and town council. We involve them to make sure everything is legit, because it's a pretty big sale. So anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 every time you're bidding.
And where do they get advertised?
So we advertised it pretty heavily on our town website and social media, and it has to go into the central register, which is a place where folks look for opportunities like this. And we also put it in the Gardner News twice.
The response isn't that great. I would suggest that we put all 3 parcels back out immediately if the cost is cheap enough, and see what kind of response that generates. If we don't get any bites at the apple, or any different bites at the apple after the second time, then maybe we move. Then maybe we move one, like Jamie said. I would like that. If we don't get, any more bites than we did originally, maybe we move it like Jamie said, and we move one of them and hold off on the other 2.
Well, the risk obviously is once we throw these, if we threw these bids out, then they no longer apply. And if we were unsuccessful in getting any bids, or 3 lower bids next time, we would then never have the opportunity to go back to the current bids we're at. So that would just be the drawback there, is that if we decided to reject all these bids, there's no guarantee we'd ever get those numbers again.
No, nothing's guaranteed, but they're just, land's gonna go up. You know, whether it's 10 years from now, the town gets more money, you know, we're all gone. It's just money in the bank. You know, they're not gonna go down in value. You know, I sell one, and hopefully the house gets built, and then they'll raise up the price of the lot, you know, getting a couple of nice lots to area that's being built a little bit.
I can't hear him at all. So can you tell us what he's saying?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, Ryan, if you don't mind, I'm basically saying, and just virtually throw something at me, Jamie, if I'm saying this wrong. But basically, what Jamie's saying is, it's always going to go up. So really, it's just going to be money in the bank eventually for the town. So even if we have to wait 5 years or 10 years or some indeterminate amount of time, we're not really taking a risk by not accepting them, because it's only going to go up in the future, and we'd just be basically just putting off for a little while when we decide to capitalize on that. Is that fair, Jamie?
Dan, I just want to add, I really have
And
no,
by selling the one lot,
I think we lost Jamie again. So again, I have no dog in the fight. I just wanted to, there is a little bit of an opportunity cost. So there's no guarantee that someone would build a house on this lot, or I'm not saying the board wants someone to build a house on this lot, but if someone was to build on this lot, that we are losing tax revenue by holding a buildable lot. So if you were to hold it for 10 years, and there was going to be a house there would be a lot of revenue lost in terms of growth based off the annual taxes you would collect on that. But I just want to make sure the board has that full understanding.
Okay.
Because there's no guarantee that if we only get rid of one lot, yes, they're going to increase in value, as Jamie said, but there's no guarantee that the interest is going to increase. As you pointed out at the beginning, Dan, it has been 5 years that we've been dealing with this, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration too.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. In the spirit of sort of collaboration here between all of us, I think that that's not a bad idea to sell one and maybe see if it generates some interest with some activity, going around there, and whether or not it's the same person who bids on it the next time go around, which could be 4 months from now, 6 months from now, some not, significant amount of time that would make us miss 6 years of, revenue from tax payments or something. So I think, maybe that's a good idea, is picking one of them and giving it a shot.
I would agree with that, but I'm not ready to make that leap yet. I'd like to throw them all back out there as soon as we can, and see if we get any new interest, or if this high bidder comes back with the same bids again. At that point, if he's the sole high bidder, and we're generating no additional business, then I like Jamie's idea of selling off a lot, seeing what that gets us, seeing what that does to the remaining 2 lots, whether it raises the cost, raises the price, or doesn't affect it at all, and go from there.
Right, that's fair too. I think we get into a point now where we're getting in a little bit of the sort of games of bidding, which I deal with a lot. And you know, there's that one good side of it, which is, okay, we've sort of set a bar. So if there were people sort of hanging out to the side, they know what they've got to get to now. They know what they've got to beat. Then there's the other side of it. They may say, you know what, I think I can make a little chance and do a little bit better. But no, I hear you. You know, I don't know. I mean, it feels like we've got some different views on here. I think the best way to further discussion on this is to see whether or not anyone wants to make a motion to you know, pursue one of these plans we've discussed a little bit further, and then during that motion, if a second comes, we can then further discuss it and decide whether to take a vote. But I think that might not be a bad idea now if somebody wants to actually propose something. Okay, Jamie just typed in that he'd like to make a motion to sell one, so we'll consider that Jamie's motion is he's making a motion to sell one at this time. Is there a second? I'll second that. So I second that motion. Further discussion on the motion on the table? Okay. So I will do a roll call vote. Start with Jamie. Jamie?
And before you go, I'm sorry. You got to identify which one.
Okay, so we'll have to go back to the motion. Jamie, lots 3, 4, and 5 are the 3 lots that are in question. Would you amend your motion to be specific about which lot?
Not the end lot, Dan. I don't know that the order of the lots, but it will not be the end lot.
Okay, Ryan, do you have a drawing or something that shows these lots so we can be sure?
I do. Just going to give me 1 second.
While he's looking that up, Dan, if I may ask you, having seconded the motion, and you basically have changed your feeling of being done with the problem, so to speak, and going along with this idea of selling one lot. Is that correct?
That's right.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yes, I did like the idea of maybe that one lot, you know, his reasoning for it made some sense to me, of generating some interest and some activity, and maybe that making a next round that potentially had two lots available, as some more interest coming in, and maybe, you know, raising the price for the remaining 2 lots. So I thought that might be a pretty good idea, and it gets the process going. That was my thought.
Okay, thank you.
So
So
What do
if
you
you
got?
if you can hear me, if you're looking at the lot, I'm sorry, it's a little bit fuzzy, but can you see where I'm circling with the cursor?
I can, but I can't see what 3, 4, and 5 are.
Okay, so lot 33, this bigger piece, that's the one that was involved in the land swap. Lot 217 is the one that has been identified as potentially a target for a affordable housing RFP. And then 218, 219, and 220 follow those as lot 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, so Jamie, I'm going to ask you this. Are you amending your motion, like you just typed in there, to be specific about it being lot 218?
Yes, Dan, if you can hear me, I'll amend that to lot 218.
Okay, I can hear you, and I'll amend the second as well. So we're back to discussion. Any further discussion? And I'm going to make sure I wait to see if anyone has to type anything, if connections aren't great. So we're in discussion before we get to a vote. Does anybody want to comment further? No? Okay, I'm going to go to roll
Yeah, I
call.
want to comment further. Hold on.
Sure, I couldn't see you were talking.
So, should we choose to accept this bid? What is the obligation of the bidder? Does he still have the opportunity not to buy this property?
Ryan, can you answer this? I don't think so. I mean, they provide a guarantee with their bid knowing these were the conditions.
We have a bid deposit, like you would in a regular sale, and we have up to 14 days to sign the purchase and sale agreement. So council and I are waiting for a decision from the board, which is happening now, and then that would be forwarded. So certainly there's the ability to break contract, but this bidder has, in good faith, submitted a bid deposit saying that they will buy this lot, and knowing that each one would be considered individually.
Is there further discussion? No. Okay. I'm going to go to a vote. So Jamie,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Dan, yes, Chris,
Opposed?
opposed. Okay, so the motion passes 3-1. So Ryan, if you could just let council know that we've approved the sale of lot 218, which you'll have to correspond to whatever lot number that is on what was on the form, and then notify the bidder of that condition, and I think please add it to a future select board agenda to pretty quickly put the remaining 2 lots back out for discussion, to put it back out.
Okay, and Dan, I don't want to be a pain. I never try to be, but I do think you should vote to not accept 219 and 220 if that's your intention.
Sure. So does somebody want to make that motion
Oh,
or any other?
I'll make them, yeah. I'll make the motion that we do not accept the bids on lots 219 and 220.
That is seconded on the chat from Jamie. So we're at discussion now. Does anyone want to ask any questions or comment on this? Okay, I'm seeing none. We're going to go to roll call. Jeff,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yeah.
Dan, yes, unanimous. Okay, Ryan.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, guys. That is item 4F. We're moving on. This is the item 4G, which is the DLTA contract scope of work.
Okay, and this was in your folders. I will share it quickly here. Down here. So what we're doing is approving this scope of work for this chapter on land use. It's a contract, so the board needs to approve it and sign it. So this would be what's being done for the land use master plan chapter. This is fully grant funded and being done by MRPC. I've looked at it, the planning board's looked at it, and we were okay with it. More than okay with it. I think it looks good.
Okay.
This would, because it's a contract, it requires a board vote
Okay.
to accept it.
We basically then taking a motion and voting on what's in front of us right now on the screen, the land use master plan chapter.
The entirety of the scope of work, but this is the bulk of it. The rest of it is what you would call boilerplate.
I'm a little confused, Ryan. What would you like the motion? How would you want it worded?
On the DLTA contract scope of work.
The DLT? Okay.
Hey, yeah.
I make a motion to accept the plan, the DLT.
Hey,
Did you get all that as outlined?
nope, it didn't come through. So I almost did. So if you could maybe say it one more time. So, so right there, item G, right in the middle of the screen there, Jeff. The motion was to
I
accept.
got it, okay. I got it. I make the motion again to accept the DLTA contract scope of work.
Okay, is there a second?
Jamie seconded by text.
Okay, I see that. Seconded. And by chat. Any discussion? No? We will roll call. Chris?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Yes.
Dan? Yes. So that is unanimous. Okay. All righty. We have moved on to item 5, which is old business. And item A is the fiscal year 21 budget.
I mean, this is a placeholder item so that we can talk about the budget. I don't have any substantial budget updates. I will at our next meeting. So as we try and understand FY21, we are continuing to work on, understanding FY20, we are continuing to work on FY21. Time will be our friend here as we understand the COVID pandemic as it's an impact on municipal governments. So I don't think there's anything to talk about tonight, but I do want to reassure everybody that we are working on it daily.
Okay. Sure. So, okay, thanks. So, and the next item I believe we just took care of, which was old business item B, town property disposal.
Yes.
All right. Well, why don't you take us through item 6, which is your town administrator report.
Okay, so I already talked about COVID-19, and there's links here for folks. We talk about it a lot, so I don't want to overshare, but we definitely don't want to undershare. If people have any questions about COVID-19, they can reach out to any of our staff in not just the virus itself, but how it impacts our business. I get a lot of folks contacting me. Can I still talk to this department or that department? Yes, we are working more than we normally do because our employees are very dedicated to make sure that our offices are open. So please reach out to us. Okay, so remote work for a department report. Remote work is continuing for all of our departments except for our public safety and DPW, but we've put in a lot of safety measures for those folks as well, as much as we can. There's some things that we cannot do. I'll reiterate that if anyone's having difficulty reaching a department, they should contact me and I'll help get them in contact with folks. And then we have a report, our preliminary report from the Collins Center for our human resource policies updates, which seems like forever ago, but we are still working on that. And then I want to share one document with you. Are you seeing long-term projects?
Yes.
Okay, so this document here just shows, I'm not going to read all these, but each staff member was asked to come up with long-term projects. So not only are they responding to emails, doing their daily work, meeting their deadlines, responding to phone calls, processing mail, but they're also taking advantage of non-commuting time and other things to work on some long-term projects. So some great examples of our ability to make ourselves more efficient and better for when we come out of this COVID-19 crisis. So this was given to you in your packets. Each office came up with what they're going to be working on, and we signed remote work agreements solidifying this plan. So I'll just give you mine, for example. I'll be working with departments to update all of their pages on the town website and just try and make it more robust. We've seen during this crisis that internet is one of the ways that we can communicate and operate. So we need to make sure it's as good as possible. Make sure all of our employee folders are compliant. When I go in to the office, I've been working on this, trying to get our human resource files as compliant as possible. And then I've been working on digitizing my entire office, getting rid of some of the paper when possible. So it's just an example of all the long-term reports, long-term projects that our staff is working on. In terms of financial management, I'll get into my Q3 financial report with you at your next meeting. But there are some indications that we will lose revenue in FY20 because of inability to collect taxes, the inability of folks to pull permits, and I'll detail that for you. There's also some savings, which is weird, but some things we're not spending right now because we're not operating the way we normally are. And then there's some what we're calling COVID-19 related expenses. So those are right now in our police department, and some sanitation measures we're doing around town are causing us to spend more than we expected. So next meeting, I'll give you a good rundown of what that means for FY20 and definitely FY21. We're going to have to cut into our revenue projections and rethink our expense projections to make sure we're meeting both numbers. And definitely want some board input. So that'll be coming next week. For infrastructure, work is continuing on Route 68 North. Our culverts on Route 62 and the Evergreen Road Bridge, those are all still green lighted and ready to go this summer. Chapter 90 project, we talked about that in detail. Those are ready to go. And we also talked about the town center project moving into FY22. I'm ready to say I think that might happen. So
It's going to be a really busy 3 or 4 years around here.
Ryan, could you go back one? Could I ask you a question?
You're the boss, Jeff. You can ask me whatever you want.
Because you were talking about our next meeting as far as the financial, excuse me. Could you possibly inquire if the school department are thinking in terms of the effect that the COVID-19 is having on towns, including our own? Could you see if they're also considering or making plans for a different kind of budget request than they had originally?
Yes, I will bring you as much information as I have from the school department to the next meeting. Their last official communication with us is they are maintaining their assessment, their budget level, which equates to our assessment being about 7.5% increase from last year. They're keeping that for now, but their communique talked about how they understand that things are changing, and we will be definitely talking with the schools about what that looks like. I do know that they're looking and investigating their budget, and that information, as you heard from Dr. Muir about schools, is very fluid and not very solid. So I feel for them. They have a difficult job, but we will need to dive into that budget soon.
Thank you.
Okay, we talked about Ragged Hill enough, so I'll move on. So for recognition, just wanted to recognize Chief Perrin. So he's been great during this COVID-19 outbreak. I work well with Chief Perrin all the time, but he was very quick to act in terms of providing guidance to his officers, working with them on community policing, and thinking and talking through how to enforce social distancing standard, which has never been done, at least in our lifetimes, while still maintaining a community presence. He also spearheaded a lot of the initial PPE requests, reaching out to folks to gather PPE and then sharing that with fire and other folks around town. I just think he's done a great job just being a community voice, and helped with the porch sing-along, just a stabilizing thing. People often look to police during these times, and I think his experience in his long time in this community and his community policing chops have really shown through. So I just wanted to recognize him and thank him. We don't always recognize our highest level department heads, and he's just done a great job and been invaluable to me.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update. Okay, moving on. Items, looks like 7 and 8, policies for review and appointments resignation. We don't have anything tonight. So on to item 9 would be a couple of wage authorizations. So we have Robert Brady and Bob Crompton.
So Robert Brady is a seasonal worker in the DPW, looking to get his new wage rate, which we align with minimum wage standards for our part-time seasonal minimum wage in Massachusetts, I should say. So you have that wage authorization. And then Bob recently hit his 1-year mark, which means he's through probation and contractually receives a increase in pay once he's through probation. So those are the 2 wage authorizations.
Can we get those up on the screen
Sure.
from the agenda, just to make for the names?
So this is Robert Brady. Jeff, you want me to do them one at a time or both?
Right now, one at a time is fine, because I'm just looking at Robert Brady. So make a motion to accept the, is this an appointment or a wage increase?
It's a wage authorization.
Make a motion to accept the wage authorization for Robert Brady as presented. Second.
Was that a second from Jamie, I heard?
Yes.
Okay, discussion?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote. Jeff,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yeah.
and Dan. Yes, that's unanimous. Okay, we've got another one here with Bob Crompton.
I'll make the motion to accept the wage authorization for Bob Crompton as presented.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, Jamie seconds it. Is the discussion? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Jeff,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yeah.
Dan. Yes, it's unanimous. Okay, sounds good. So we have, we're almost done. We've got a couple of meeting minutes to take a look at. I think we pushed these off, so we might as well take care of these. So the first is March 10th. All of us were present at that, including Pat, who's not here tonight. So this was March 25th. If somebody wants to, unless they have any issues, we can talk about that during discussion. But if somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the board meeting on March 25th, 2020. Second.
Seconded by Jamie. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll roll call. Jeff,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Dan. Yes. Okay. Next one is April 6th. We were also all present, including Pat.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the board meeting on April 6th, 2020.
That was seconded by Jamie. Any discussion? Jeff? To a vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Dan, yes. It's unanimous. And then our next one is, and final one is April 10th. Again, we were all present. We are all so committed that we are present for most of these, including Pat. So somebody want to make a motion?
Make the motion to accept the minutes of the board meeting April 10th, 2020.
Second it.
Seconded by Jamie. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Roll call. Jeff?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Dan, yes, that is unanimous. Okay, so we are now at committee updates. There are none I have. If anyone has any, please chime in. And then item 12, matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I don't have any. Does any of the other board members, you guys have anything else you want to bring up? No?
Oh, yes. It's in the comments.
I apologize for my audio.
Yes.
That's all I see.
But I would like to announce I'm not seeking re-election. It has been my privilege to serve the town. We do not accept that comment. This is not a legal way to do that. I don't have any basis for that, but neither do you. So anyway, sad to see it. Thanks for, taking it seriously. You took it seriously before you joined and since you've joined. So we're still going to hold out a little bit of hope that maybe somehow somebody will change your mind. But assuming that doesn't happen, thanks for your time here.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody. Still got a few more meetings to go.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Is there anything else less awful than that people want to bring up? No? Okay. Public press question answer. So we're at this time now. I know there's a couple people who are still on as attendees. Does anyone else put up their hand in any way, Ryan, that they want to speak?
I'm just checking one more time. No indication of public participation.
Okay. Well, it's 8:58 that I have right here. So if somebody wants to make a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Jamie seconds it. So is there any discussion?
Second motion.
No discussion. We'll vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.